Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing David of Flix Talk. David, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, my friend. Thank you so much, Ken, for having me on today.
Big fan. Been a fan of your channel for a while now, and I was finally able to be like, you know what? I'm just going to ask him. What's the worst that could happen? He'll say no. So to actually have you
No,
come on and
never.
hang out with us for a little bit, man, this is super rad. But before
Yeah.
we talk about the reason I invited you here, David, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. David is a 38-year-old, perfect age, that was born in LA and still lives in Southern California. He started his YouTube channel about 6 years ago as a way to give his opinions on movie he liked. Kind of morphed into podcast, live streams, reactions, and more. And what that says is you found something you really loved and you wanted to perfect it and grow. No one wants to stay stagnant and just do one thing over and over again. When you really fall in love with something, you want to keep it growing and keep new things happening to keep it fresh. So,
Yeah.
first off, what got you started in wanting to? I know that you did it because you wanted to give your opinions on movies, but what gave you the push to be like, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is the direction I want to go with Flix Talk.
Yeah. So I was always that guy that was kind of like talking about movies at work. There's always that one guy that's just like really overzealous about this movie or this show or older movies or newer stuff. So I was always talking, and someone's like you're really kind of like knowledgeable about this, and I'm like, I'm not really knowledge. I just watch a lot of stuff. Sometimes I retain a lot. And they're like, have you ever thought about podcasts? And I'm like, well, not really. I watch a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, and I can appreciate a lot of. I was watching a lot of horror podcasts back in the day. I still do a little bit here and there, but mainly a lot of comedian podcasts. But nowadays, I just kind of was like, you know what? Maybe there is something a little bit to it. I'm just going to try it, and I just really sat in front of my computer and just kind of laid out how I wanted to do it. So I started off doing movie reviews, and I don't only do just horror. I do kind of just anything I'm really interested in. But this channel initially, Flix Talk, was going to be horror only. It was
Mm-hmm.
like right at the last moment where I was like, you know what? Even though I do love horror, there's a huge horror community. I don't want to kind of shoehorn myself into if someone asks me like, "Oh, what do you think about this action movie or this dramatic movie?" And it's like, "Well, I'm horror. I can't really talk that, but I do watch everything, really. I kind of grew up on everything, so I decided to just make it a little bit of everything. Started off with reviews, and then just growing up, I had a buddy who really liked to talk movies and stuff, and he's like, hey, do you need some help? Like, do you want to like spitball back and forth if you want to do podcasts and whatnot? And I'm like, let's do it. So he lives in Las Vegas. So I'm like, let's record something. We kind of did it like how we're doing it now, Skype and whatnot. And we just recorded a couple of episodes. He kind of got really busy, and then I just started to learn the community along the way, and just through Instagram and whatnot, build with people. And like you had said, kind of off camera, is that like you want to build, like it's important for us to kind of reach out to each other and build. I know a lot of people that are exactly like-minded, like us, like or like
Mm-hmm.
you, and then I know people that are the complete opposite, that will just
Oh,
leave
yeah.
you on red. They won't even bat an eye at a question that you ask them or whatever, and that's totally fine. I mean, people are, can do whatever they want to do. I know time constraints or whatever, for whatever reason they don't want to work together or collab. Um, from there, it kind of just grew into just more reviews, and I ended up doing another podcast with my buddy Movie Files, who has a huge channel. He really actually grew. My buddy Elliot, so shouts out to Elliot. But we then kind of just wanted to do our own thing, and I totally understood it. So then I just started focusing more on doing live streams with the community, because I wanted to just eventually, initially, I wanted to just build a community. So like,
Yeah.
what do you guys like from me? Let's talk movies and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff that you guys see on my channel, my YouTube channel, is mainly because the community wants to see it. So I just started getting into reactions a couple of years ago, found out how to kind of do it. I mean, obviously, with the YouTube system and stuff like that, with copyright, you got to learn how to kind of play the game to get past a lot of that copyright. You know how it is, I'm
Yes,
sure, just
sir.
showing clips and certain things or music or whatever. And then I was just like, this is a vessel for me to review and react to movies that I am not familiar with. And a lot of people are, you haven't seen this one, I recommend this one. And then it just became like, I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of movies that I still have not seen and I plan to watch in my lifetime. And it's just once again, fun to just kind of relive people's nostalgia. And I'll just get comments from people that are older than me, just like, oh my God, you watched Red Dawn for the first time last month. I love that. And this and this and this. So stuff like I love seeing comments like that. It makes me smile. And for the most part, it's been a really positive experience.
And it's funny you say that because Red Dawn, that's one of the videos that it just popped up on my subscription feed is all messed up, Max. It just popped up like a week ago, and I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
this is like like because it happens with Cody all the time too. My buddy Cody Leach, like I'll get
Yeah.
something and I'll be like, bro, this is sick, and I'll look at the date and be like, what the. I'm a dick. I should have watched this a week ago.
Yeah.
But what I love about what you're saying is the building the community part.
Yeah.
I've said this before on this podcast, but horror will always have, I feel like, a taboo around it to where people are like, oh, that's disgusting and it's scary and the people are mean. And it's actually quite the opposite. Yes, horror can be disgusting and gross and scary and whatnot, but the people involved are the sweetest, kindest, most genuine people. And I'm talking about from fans to podcasters to actors to directors, like musicians. They are just, once you start talking horror with people, they're like, yes, I'm invested. Let's talk about this. You talked about
Yeah.
being that guy. That was me. I was blessed. I grew up in a video store. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store called Downtown Video. So I was
Nice.
always that guy that just, at the sleepovers, yo, let's invite Kenny over because he's gonna bring the movies. Like I was that
Yeah.
kid. And growing up, I lived in a town that had more, bulls than people. So horror
Mm.
was not the most popular thing out here until Scream in '96, when horror kind of broke through as being cool. So up until then, horror was like taboo, and people were like, "You're fucking weird, dude." You're like, "It's
Yeah.
April. It's not October." Like, why are you watching scary shit? It's not Halloween.
Yeah.
So doing a community like this is so special because you were talking about the nostalgia and like from when we were kids. I would have
Hmm.
loved to have had this type of avenue when I was young, to be able to talk with like-minded people. Yeah, we're queer and we're freaks and we're different and all this stuff, but we love that. We love the fact that we're different. I love the
Yeah.
fact that growing up I was the weird kid.
Hmm.
I was the weird kid, but you know what? I married my wife in high school and we're still together 19 years later. So
Oh, that's
I'm happy to
fantastic.
be the
Yeah.
weird horror movie kid. So
Yeah.
it always goes back to this avenue is so special for people like us that didn't grow up with a lot of like-minded people that were into the horror world. We can be
Right.
that light for people and show them you're not weird. And if you are, fuck it. Who cares? Be weird with us. So,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about this like you guys already know. And if you don't, I have all of David and Flix Talks links down in the description. So make sure you're following on social media. Make sure you are hitting that subscribe button, hitting that little bell, and hitting all. So that way you can get all his notifications. The dude live streams like it's going out of fucking style. I do one a week, and I feel like I'm going to lose my mind sometimes. This guy, I'm surprised that his camera and his keyboard is not like that Back to the Future fire back there under the tires. Man. This guy's
Yeah.
constantly going, man. It's impressive. I
No,
try
it's
to put
fun,
out
man.
4 to 5. I try to put out
Yeah.
4 to 5 videos a week in one live stream, and I watch how
That's
much you
great.
live stream, and I'm just like, God damn, this guy's a G. Like he's really killing it. And I know a lot
Thank
of
you,
you that
man.
watch this, you love coming out to the Sledgehammer horror live streams, our top tens, our franchise rankings. David might be involved in those here in the future.
I'm
Um,
down.
so make sure you're checking it out. Because like I said, the guy live streams, and what's great about him, he is going to work with his community. He's not one of those people that's going to make you do a super chat in order for him to answer your questions. He wants to be there with you just as much as you want to be there with him. He does it for the right reasons, to talk to his community, to grow his community, and learn what you guys like to see. So make sure, like I said, you're subscribing to the channel, going to those live streams, and just having a great time. So in order for you to do Flix Talk, which I know is not just horror, but there are horror movies you talk about. So in
Hmm.
order for you to do that, horror had to start for you somewhere, my friend. So David, I
Oh,
would
yeah.
like to go back to the past and talk about what it was that got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie, and beep beep Richie, your first horror movie was.
It was the 1990 TV version. Yes. My God. So that was the earliest memory that I could remember. Fantastic. Still holds up to me.
Yep.
I remember my dad was the horror guy. So my mom hated horror. Like she was, fried green tomatoes, like these kind of movies, that were coming out around that time.
Still don't,
Great.
dude. I'm a
Oh,
drama guy too.
fantastic.
I
Yeah.
love drama too, man. So I can't talk shit. Like I've
Right.
seen
Yeah.
fried green tomatoes a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the comedy and stuff like that, and all that was shimmied in there. But my dad would, I don't know if it was, I think it was a Stephen King thing. He was really gravitating. So Silver Bullet, Dead Zone, a lot of these movies that
Yeah.
I could not really grasp when I was a lot younger. I was like peeking around the corner, like just scared, like because I was in the other room, but I could hear it. He would have it blaring, and I would kind of creep in and hide under a pillow while he's watching it, on the couch and whatnot. And it was such a great experience, a crazy experience. Tim Curry is fantastic as Pennywise. Like I said, it holds up. Even some of the remakes today that they did from it, I was a fan of. I saw them in theaters, and I actually liked what they did with this property that I'm glad was introduced to a newer audience, because sometimes the remakes, and a lot of the remakes for the most part, can fall flat, and they don't really resonate, too much with at least the people that grew up with it, maybe for a newer
Sure.
audience, but for me, it wasn't really a lot of the newer stuff that was resonating. But yeah, that was one that just scared the hell out of me.
Well, I think that if you're going to do a remake, because I'm with you, I'm not anti-remake by any stretch of the imagination. This is the perfect movie to remake. This movie
Mm-hmm.
was made for TV in 1990. This never got a theatrical release. We all forget about
Right.
that because this is probably the most profitable horror made for TV movie of all time. And definitely the most well known, I would say, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows it, everybody knows Pennywise, and they didn't have the budget to do what they're able to do with these movies on the big screen like they did with 2017 and 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
like you get certain scenes where it cuts away real quick or something happens because they didn't have the budget and it was made for TV. They couldn't show you all the blood and guts and shit on the made for
Right.
TV version. So if you're going to remake a movie, to me, this is the perfect choice. Yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
cult classic. Yeah, we love it, but the budget wasn't there. You can still see when you watch it where they had the commercial breaks. Like they have those
Yeah.
moments where it goes to black. Like
Yeah. It'll fade
I
out.
agree with
Yeah.
you. It holds up. I'm not
Yeah.
bashing the movie at all. I love this movie and it's very special to me. Very, very special to me. But there's definitely moments like that, like, oh, that's where they went to commercial back then. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we had the two VHS set, oh, put in VHS number two now,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
we knew you were a young boy, watched this with your dad the first time you had seen
Yeah.
it, but do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
Oh, probably the most iconic. I mean, there's a couple of scenes throughout, so I do remember obviously the sewer scene, where you have Pennywise creeping through with the really sharp teeth and just kind of the shadows, and because where I grew up, I mean, when you're younger and you're out playing with your friends and stuff, there's no clock. The clock was the light comes on and
Street
you better be
lights.
home. Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I would pass by those sewers and drainage and stuff like that all the time. And watching that just made everything around me kind of more creeped out when I was out playing with my friends or just, riding bikes or whatever. And I think that's what it was. It made you scared to be in a certain environment that could be real. Because yes, you're watching something that's a movie, but then you bring it to real life, when you walk outside your door after that. But that one in particular, and then also there's a scene with and I was just talking to my buddy Q about this, is that Stephen King has these particular bullies that he always throws in movies that are very similar to each other, but you always kind of know someone like this or know a group that's a bully like this. And the bullies get, I forget the names already, but one of them gets approached by Pennywise in the sewer, and he just gets so terrified. And I kind of looked this up, I remember just recently, to see if that could really happen, if your hair could turn gray. Because I remember asking my dad, why did that kid's hair turn gray? And he was like, he just got so scared that happened. And I was like, can that really happen? And he's like, I'm not sure. He didn't know at the time. We didn't have Google back then, so he didn't really
Right.
know. But I looked it up, and I was like, yeah, there's instances of like Ash, that happening to Ash from Evil Dead, and there's like a couple instances here and there in other movies, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty gnarly.
Nancy, Nightmare on Elm Street gets the gray streak.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And,
it's a scary. It's a cool thing though that they can implement like some realistic
yes.
elements into a movie like that. Yeah.
And a thing that I think is so special about this movie, especially when, we were watching this as young men for the first time. While this wasn't my first horror movie, what affected me the most about it was I was watching my peers. This wasn't
Mm,
adults fighting something. This was kids. And we
yeah.
see these kids that are going up against this monstrous clown or half wolf man, half mummy, whatever have you vision they're having of it. So
Yeah.
we can relate to it. We that's us. We are those kids. So
Hmm.
I think that's why this movie was so impactful to us at such a young age, because sometimes in back then you had kids that were the main characters, but they were the main characters. In this, the movie revolved around them for the whole first half.
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
really got sucked in because we're those kids. That's us. We're watching ourselves and our friends, our own lucky seven. We're
Yeah.
watching on there. So it's absolutely brilliant how they were able to make this at a time in 1990 where things are still kind of taboo in the horror world, and it was
Hmm.
passed off so well, and so many people loved it. But we know which scene affected you the most. But what would you say your it's gonna be hard to say, but your favorite scene from 1990s it would be?
Yes, he's standing above. Yes, yes, that's the scene right there. That one did stand out in my mind. I just couldn't pinpoint where it was in the movie. But that one just definitely resonates with me for sure. To
And
stick in my
especially because,
mind.
like, you're watching it with your dad, and at first
Hmm.
Ben sees his dad. No, come on,
Hmm.
Ben. And he slowly turns into Pennywise. Like, at first he has his army uniform on, then he has the three buttons, and he's holding the
Hmm.
balloon, and then he's just Pennywise, like pointing at the thing, like the sewer thing. Like, come on, Ben, let's
Yeah,
play.
and
So
that's even creepier because, like you said, the taboo, the whole thing about even children getting abducted or nobody knowing what's happening in the town. They just probably think children are getting abducted, and that's a scary thing because that's obviously a real thing. So that on itself is another layer of just terrifying.
and that still rings probably more true today than it did back
Hmm.
in 90.
Oh yeah.
No fucking way I'm letting my kids walk around town by themselves now. My mom would
Right.
send me to town to buy her shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not a chance I'm letting my kids do that nowadays.
Right.
So as horror fans, something that we love is the kills. We're suckers for the kills. We love the kills. Now, while there aren't a ton of kills throughout it, the ones they have are effective and stick with you.
Mm,
Do you remember what your favorite kill or kill that affected you the most as a child was from it?
man. I guess I should have rewatched this before I talked to you, huh? I, I really can't remember the kills like 100%. I really
Well,
can't
I mean,
remember
you
them.
want to talk about taboo? The movie
Yeah.
literally opens with two different children getting killed.
Hmm.
First you have the little girl, and she's standing out in the laundry, and you see Pennywise in the towel. Hi, and then he attacks her and kills
Oh,
her.
that's that famous. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's kind of like a
And then
little
you
slow
go right
motion,
from
kind of going through. Yeah.
yeah, and then you go right from that to Georgie getting killed. So it's taboo to have children getting kidnapped and killed. And this movie's like, you know what? Fuck it. Kill two kids in the first 10 minutes. Do a boy and girl so no one's mad. Like
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
just like,
true.
let's go all out on it, man.
Yeah.
Um, so you did bring it up a little bit ago. Whenever I talk about a movie that's recently been remade or they talk about remakes happening with it, I always want to talk about that. You
Yeah.
talked about how you did like it 17 and 19.
Mhm.
So whenever I talk about these movies, I always ask, who is your preferred Pennywise? Is it Bill Skarsgård or is it Tim Curry?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough because I think Bill Skarsgård did a really good job as his version. Obviously, it's a little more wacky with the budget, like you said. The CGI is just really off the wall, but at the same time, I I felt like they needed to do that for a modern audience because they're like, you know what, we're sinking a lot of money into this. Literally, we're showing these children's fears, right? And we're going to show everything. We're not going to let anything, be to the imagination, which I can appreciate too, because I grew up on a lot of stuff that was left to your imagination, and then a lot of stuff that it's just straight up all over, Terrifier 2 in your face type of shit, right? So I can appreciate both. But if I had to choose between, oh my gosh, I got to go with Tim Curry still. I have to. It's a very very close one though. I thought Bill Skarsgård had his own version and got a lot of mannerisms down, but he also added a lot to it that made it just very manical. Just especially with the where they're in that kind of glass area in the 2017 version where they're kind of smashing his head. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is something I could never imagine in 1990 happening.
right.
So
Well,
I
and
like stuff like that. Yeah.
I agree with you. This is a hard choice for me, and the only reason I give the nod to Tim Curry, and again, this is just me being who I am. I feel like Skarsgård's, and again, Skarsgård is fucking fantastic. I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything away from him. If I was a kid walking down the road and I saw Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise, I'd have been like, "Fuck that," and walked the other way. If I saw Tim Curry's, I'd be like, "Ooh, cool, a clown," and I'd have walked up to him. He
Yeah.
reminds me of what the original story was, of Ed Gein. This clown,
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful clown on the outside, but a monster on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I give the nod to Curry, because when you look at that clown, he looks like a joyful circus clown. When you look at
Yeah.
Skarsgård, you're just like, fuck this thing. Like even as an
Yeah.
adult, I'd be like, whoa, kids, get back. This guy's scary as hell.
Yeah.
So Skarsgård did his job. He was scary. He was fantastic. He did the eye shit. Like his voice was great. Everything he did was amazing, but he was just a little too scary for me. And when I'm thinking about the source material of Ed Gein and or I'm sorry, John Wayne Gacy. I don't know why I keep saying Ed Gein. It's John Wayne
Oh, no
Gacy.
worries.
I feel I upset the serial killer. Fuck him anyway. But
I'm not 100% on serial killers either. So yeah.
so either way, that's what the source was he would dress up like a clown and he'd be loved in the community, but he was killing kids and putting them under his fucking porch.
Yeah.
So that to me is what makes him scary.
Yeah,
So
even that,
David,
another thing to add to that too is that years ago we had a lot of those like actual clown killers that were walking around.
yes,
Or well, I don't know if they actually killed some people, but I know they were walking around terrorizing people and stuff. So, and they were kind of dressed similar to Pennywise, where it was more of a approachable clown that a kid would probably go up to if they didn't know any better. You know?
exactly. And that to me
Yeah.
is what makes it scary because you let your guard down because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy's gonna make me a fucking dog out of a balloon and give me some cotton candy,
Yeah.
But no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So we know how horror started for you being it and what that movie means to you. But here for a second, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you.
Sure.
My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
All
What's
right.
your favorite scary movie, David? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Yikes. That's always a tough one because I'm always rotating. Uh, so it's funny that you and I talked about Tales from the Hood. As far as like, I mean, I rewatch a lot of movies all the time. I don't know if you could see it in frame. You probably can't. But the original 1978's Dawn of the Dead
Mhm.
is one of those that I wasn't necessarily introduced to it as at a young age, probably more in my preteen years. But
Yeah.
when I saw that one, even though by then, I mean, well, I had not seen the Zack Snyder one. That one had not come out yet. But
Mhm.
zombie movies were making their rounds and stuff like that. Return of the Living Dead is one of my favorites as well. Even though I still felt like, even though the Dawn of the Dead movie, the original, it was a lot slower than those movies. It didn't have like the punker gang and all this other stuff like that.
Yep.
I had characters that I really cared for, like even at a
Yes.
younger age, that I cared if they lived or they died. And even though the makeup, work is a bit shoddy on some of them, you got Tom Savini, you have a lot of great people around this whole cast. You have George Romero, obviously, but like he built once again another environment that was just. I put myself in that situation. Where would I go if
Yeah.
the world is being taken over, even by slow moving zombies? Like, and the mall seemed like a really good, no brainer. No pun intended. But like they all end up there, and then you're like, wait a minute. Okay, if these zombies overtake the mall, where are they going from there? So then it makes you rethink a lot of different things. But I really do enjoy that movie. I watch it over and over, at least once a year. I watch it.
Yeah.
I try to show it to people that don't know anything about Dawn of the Dead. They go, oh, well, how about Night of the Living Dead? I go, that's a fantastic one too. But I would, even if some people are not into that, into the black and white, So
Right.
I go, if you want to get an introduction to the zombie world, I would say Dawn of the Dead is one that I would start with, at least to try to
Yeah.
tiptoe a little bit into some horror,
See, and I agree with you because I've always been a huge fan of Mr. Romero's work. Everything he's done has always been super awesome to me. I think he was just fantastic with what he did. He didn't create the zombie, but he definitely made what we think of as zombies
Yeah.
popular.
Mm-hmm.
Without him, you wouldn't have had your Walking Dead, which took the world by storm. All these movies that were super important wouldn't have happened without Mr. Romero and his work. And
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead is at the top of his filmography, man. Like I'm with you. It's up at the top. That and Night for me go back and forth for my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go wrong with either one of those movies ever. So,
Yeah.
man, I've had an amazing time with you talking about your first horror movie and your favorite horror movie. But
Same
before I
here.
let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go
Mm-hmm.
back to It 1990. And what we're
Okay.
going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing is ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle.
Okay.
David, what would your ranking of It 1990 be?
Okay. So I know it wasn't very helpful, but not remembering a lot. But I'm going to say that that movie, from what I can remember at the time, was very impactful. And like I said, it scared me. It made me not want to. I don't have a phobia of clowns, but I did not want to get anywhere near them around that time. I know that for sure.
Right.
I'm going to say it was probably a 4 out of 5 because it didn't completely traumatize me. So I would say 4 out of 5 skulls. But I know that it was a movie that my dad had on VHS, the double set, like you said, and it was just always being played around with other movies, The Shining or Dead Zone, like I was saying, a lot of Stephen King movies in the house. So my dad was really trying to creep us out with werewolves and monster movies.
That's the best, man.
Yeah.
And I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you are following Flix Talk on social media. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can become a part of that family as well. David, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Um, Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps to build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.